Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions. Unifying Family, building strong families. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Unifying Families, Men on Monday. I am your host, Marissa Boyce, with you this evening. And with me, we offer apologies for Pastor Bino, who's not with us this evening, but I'm sure that you're always glad for his contribution. So we offer apologies for Pastor Bino, who's away on business this evening. With us, we have Bishop Mark. Good evening to you. And of course, everyone. If you don't know, Bishop Mark is also the leader of Love and Light Ministries, and he's also a counselor. He's also the author of a book. What is the book? Marriage is Hard Work. That's
Working at Marriage. Yes, please.
Working at Marriage. And
I should have named it that, though. That Marriage is Hard Work. I really should have done that. Yes.
That's why I said that, because he always says that. So Bishop Mark with us this evening. Minister Kevin, who, if you don't know, and you're looking for, you want to learn how to sing, this man can sing. Excellent. Maybe one day we should have him sing on the program, but Minister Kevin Grant with us this evening. And none other also in the top corner, if you're seeing Mr. Sinclair Brown. And Mr. Sinclair Brown is very talented. And I will tell you that he is the head, the leader, the founder of Healthy Cottage. She's talking about a healthy body. And for those of you joining us and you need that good massage, you need counseling also, he will tell you that the emotional affects the physical. And so he's the one to help you through processing all of that. So for those of you who are with us, thank you for joining us this evening. This is today's edition of Men on Monday. I am Marissa Boyce with you. It's always a joy and honor, privilege to be with you, sharing on our show. For those of you who are with us, feel free to like our video, like and share, because this evening, as with last program, we talked about gaslighting. Gaslighting. And for those of you who missed it, let's just recap a bit about what gaslighting is. And it's the psychological manipulation of a person. And it comes in various forms: separation from family, separation from friends. And the emotional and the psychological side is that sometimes you doubt yourself and your self-esteem is definitely affected by it all. So we're going to just delve right into that this evening. Sinclair, if we can just expand on that, and then we can jump right into our show. We're talking about gaslighting in relationships. That's our focus. For those of you who are with us, feel free to say good evening and let us know that you are here with us. And also let us know where you are tuned in from. Sinclair.
Yes, please. Good evening to all. Blessings to the ministers and pastors. Everybody here could sing. That's the thing. You talk about Kevin could sing. Bishop Mark is a profound singer, album, and everything. Leader of one of the most profound gospel bands and brothers. And you yourself could sing.
Me?
God has not blessed me with that. I wish
Who's that?
Singing. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I was distracted. I didn't hear you. What did you say?
You can't sing? Right. I said you can sing. You're also
Listen, Sinclair, we were not doing that. We
Yeah.
were not doing that.
I know you can't sing. I wish I could sing. I wish I could sing. I can tell you. Ask Bishop Mark. I tried. I didn't make the worship team. But nonetheless, God bless my soul. Gaslighting. I gaslighted myself. Right. Gaslighting is defined as a form of a psychological manipulation in which a person or a group seeks to sow seeds of doubt in a targeted individual, making them question their own memory, perception, and sanity. And this term was coined from a play for several years ago, where the husband he keep adjusting the cause that thing lights for down gas. He keep adjusting the lights so that it messes with his sanity.
That is true. She can't
I'm hearing voices. Sorry. They're hearing the message, the sanity of the lady, because she keeps saying the lights are dimming. What I did, it made her doubt herself, drove her insane, and eventually he was able to get the resources of the lady, and that's where that came from, the gaslighting term. So one of the things that we touched on last week was denying past events, because it could be in a discussion if you're a spouse, because we're looking from a spousal position, but you're discussing things and person denying that it actually happened. So it's make you going like, wait, you know this happened and it happened outside. No, that did not happen, especially if it's a one-on-one situation. The person denied those events ever happening, trivializing your feelings. They make seem you don't have the ability to express your emotions and your feelings, projecting onto the other person. So they take what they're thinking about you putting onto the other person, not giving you opinion or a feeling, twisting facts and shifting them, blaming the person, blaming the victim. And that's the thing, making the victim feel as though they don't have a right to be the victim. Yeah, so the person is ultimately the aggressor and the victim. Isolating the victim. The other thing too is, this is both in a relationship, both men and women do this. They make you don't trust your friends, don't trust your family, don't trust your church members, don't trust this person, don't trust your buddies, or girls, don't trust your girlfriends, and just is you and I against the world. That isolation takes away your individuality and your personality. You don't have evidence of things outside of us, and therefore it makes a prime situation for that gaslighter and creating confusion. They normally start by they just come and they attack, then they get you into an emotional state of crying, anger, frustration, annoyed. It makes your whole sanity start to have challenges. So that's the what we did discuss last week. That is the definition, and those are some of the methods of gaslighting.
Yeah, so there we have it. Anyone want to jump in there? Kevin, Bishop Mark? I know we missed Bishop Mark last week. Kevin, you want to say anything?
Hey,
I think Kevin is on delay.
yeah, he looks
You're
stuck.
sticking this evening, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. So I guess Bishop Mark could jump in.
Kevin, I'm not
Well,
sure if
what,
you're
what,
muted, but we're not hearing you
yeah.
this evening, Kevin.
I think it's more delay than his mic is on.
Yeah, it's a delay, Kevin. We're not hearing you clearly. So I don't know if you want to pop out and then pop back in, Kevin, if you can. Go ahead, Bishop Mark.
Yes, no, I was saying that I did peep in last week and I went back at it. And I thought the program was rather interesting. And, this whole gaslighting scenario, um, when y'all were speaking, I think can be easily compounded when persons suffer from low self-esteem or have certain psychological issues, because then that kind of magnifies, or should I say, um, um, make the situation even worse when someone is seeking to do the gaslighting. Lighting. And so one of the things that I think we should look at is how does the person who is getting that um, behavior coming at them, how do they or should they respond to what is happening? And maybe we'll add that to our discussion as we go on this evening.
Yes, Kevin, are you there? I think Kevin is having a delay with his internet, and I'm
Maybe
hoping that might
maybe
be
his
fixed.
internet is giving us some
Yeah,
trouble.
internet is giving a little
Mhm.
challenge there. Good evening to Juliet, Jason, and Marilyn, or Rosaline. Good evening to all of you who are with us this evening. And whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, or or you are on LinkedIn, we want to say good evening to you this evening. Interestingly, we talked about some of the aspects of gaslighting and the effects of it, because
Mhm.
we discussed last week that it is not only within the workplace, it's
Yeah.
not only within the church that it happens. We talk about even the parental relationships, but it also happens, especially between a man and a woman. And social media has made this thing a buzz. It's gone, you know, as I say, the streets are talking. So we are quite aware that, when it comes to gaslighting. It is a real interesting form of manipulation, even attacking a partner. And one of the things that was quite interesting after I did my research is that many people are not aware that it is happening to them. And
That's
then
true.
many people are not aware that they also do it. So it goes from both ends, where you there's the psychological manipulation, as Sinclair explained, the flicking on and off of the lights and saying, no, it's not happening. And like last week's scenario I gave, where Sinclair stepping on my toe, and I'm telling Sinclair, but you're stepping on my toe. And Sinclair saying, no, I'm not stepping on your toe. And then interestingly, Kevin said, move your foot. Move your foot. So quite interestingly enough, there are different perspectives to addressing this. Kevin, you wanted to say something before we delve right into our program. Thanks, Rosalie.
Well, as you said a while ago, that I alluded to moving your foot. I feel like sometimes that's what we need to do, move your foot. Because the reality is that if you recognize that this person is being deceptive in saying that, no, I'm not stepping on your foot, you're the one who's feeling the pain. I feel like it's about time there needs to be a firewall kind of a mechanism that you develop, that sometimes you got to shift yourself out of that space. I understand too that because gaslighting happens over time, sometimes by the time you recognize that this is what is happening to you, you've automatically fallen in that trap, and you feel mentally imprisoned by this individual. So it's almost like you believe everything that they say. But even at the inception of things, when you start to on my toe, and if you can't acknowledge this reality, one, we have to own our reality, right? Because if St. Clair is stepping on your toe, your reality is that you feel the pain. So if he can't acknowledge that he's stepping on your toe, then you need to move your foot. And I mean, that's how I see it. Move your foot, And the thing is that sometimes what we do in the gaslighting situation is that we keep hoping that the perpetrator will get the message, and you keep trying to convince them that what they're doing is wrong and that they need to acknowledge that this is a situation. Sometimes they will never get to that place that they will acknowledge, because if they do acknowledge it, then it's not considered gaslighting. So they're not going to acknowledge it. Then you need to play your part, and your part is to take away yourself, take your foot out the way.
Get out the relationship. In essence, that's what you're saying. Get out the
Yes.
relationship.
Yes.
If it's that easy.
If it's that, no, sometimes it might not be as easy, but think about it this way. If you see that all your reality is being taken away by this individual, it's like you, every time you give in to them, you're empowering them. So how do you take your power back? You can't wait for them to come to a realization to say, oh, you're doing this to me, and you know what, baby, I'm sorry, and all of that. No, you have to take away yourself.
I like that. We're gonna get back to that tonight. Take away yourself. Sinclair, you want to
But
say
wait,
something?
no, I want to get the Minister Kevin. So I'm coming to you counseling. We Christian, we saved, baptized the Holy Spirit. And therefore, there's no fornication, there's no adultery. And they complaining that the woman standing on my foot, and they say that she's not standing on my foot. Talk to me. Counsel me, Minister Kevin.
Well, the good thing is that I am not a counselor by profession. So the only thing I can speak, if I speak from a layman's perspective.
Or I come in from Bishop Mark. Bishop Mark.
But Bishop Mark probably would better handle that. But for me, though, I feel like today it's stepping on your toe. Tomorrow it's something else, right? Because the thing about gaslighting, it's not just going to be one thing. The aim, the goal, the objective is to control your mind, right? Is to take away your power completely so that you depend on that individual. So today starts on stepping on your toe. And if you can't acknowledge something as simple as stepping on my toe, then what's going to happen when things get deeper? So from the onset, one, we hope they wouldn't get as far as to marriage, because you would have hopefully been seeing and experiencing gaslighting during even the dating process. And that's when you need to take away yourself. No, if you unfortunately stayed in that relationship and know your eyes are being opened to gaslighting, and know you're recognized, manipulated, and all of these things are happening to you, then it's time to seek counseling. That's where you come in, St. Clair and Bishop Mark. You guys step into that position now, and you come in and say, listen, in order for the relationship to survive, these are the things that needs to change, right?
All right, Bishop
And
Mark, I come to Bishop. Sorry.
the reality is that you might even suggest that probably you better not separate for a bit and try to figure this out. I don't know. I'm not the counselor.
Bishop Mark, I come to you. I'm married. I come in. So this after we married, I guess we can look at before. But I'm married and I come to you for
Yeah.
counseling. And there's no fornication, no adultery. But she's standing on my foot, Bishop. And
Right.
when I tell she's standing on my foot, she's saying
She,
And
again.
and
she
and,
says,
and
she
then
says,
and then
"Joy,
saying that, there, it's not happening.
I'm too
That's
sensitive. I too
yeah.
emotional,
that's
Bishop.
another thing too, saying that you're too sensitive.
Yeah, I gotta be a man, and she's telling me that hard. Talk to me, Bishop.
Well, first of all, I would be very happy that that you're stepping into counseling. You see, one of the things that I've found in a lot of these situations, though, and yes, there are these manipulative persons and so on, but the person who's being offended, the one who's being affected by these things, first, I think, have to do what I call a self-actualization test. In other words, sometimes people do things to you, and the only reason they get power over you is because how you respond to that stimuli. You understand what I'm saying? So therefore, when like I liked what Kevin was saying, when the wifey place the mashing your foot, the first reaction is to move the foot, right? So if it keep happening, then you have to address it from a different way. But in terms of it being in a marriage now, I'm Christian, both parties would have to look at the scenario from the standpoint of one, first of all, we got to determine whether it's really gaslighting, because sometimes we would call these things because we hear them and it look close, and we respond to these things like if that is the reality. As you would know, say clear, many times you go into situations counseling, and the particular person who's the offended party gives you a whole story. It seems like if they're really getting destroyed by what's happening, and then you hear the other person speak, and one little thing shows up that the person probably many times take what is happening the wrong way because of something that would have taken place in their lives before. They might have been abused. They might have been had a relationship before where they really had loved somebody real bad, and they have toughened up and determined, well, look, I ain't taking the foolishness and so on. So it will. I think we all agree here that it will mean some intense counseling and for people to be real. The situation though is that if we really can identify it as gaslighting, the offender, I think, would have to be the person that would have to be submissive to the counseling and so on, so as to be part of the solution and not the problem. So it would
Or
all depend on how it is affecting both parties, and where they are at and what issues they have in their lives that are contributing. Because sometimes people can say something to you negatively, and because you're all right, you take it, you try to look at yourself. If there's no problem, you say to yourself, well, okay, that's their opinion. But when things can start to push you in a corner, can cause you to start to question yourself and your own self-worth and so on, I think that's where we have to get more serious relative to counseling and getting help.
So here's my thing. How does someone really identify being gaslit? That this thing is real, that I'm really, on the receiving end, or because let's talk about that, the receiving end first versus the
Mhm.
person that's doing it. Because as you said, and we discussed after the program last week, is that one of the interesting things is that you are in a relationship, which should be a healthy relationship, which allows me to say to St. Clair, you know, you're doing this, and when you do this, I feel this way, it hurts me, and not, pointing fingers at you always doing this, and when you do that, but rather than, the right choice of words so that the other person understands what you're saying. So
Correct.
how do we really understand that the partner is just expressing that this thing is hurting, rather than, gaslighting, as we called it? Because there must be key words, key components of behavior that are reoccurring, that you can say, you know what, this is gaslighting. So Sinclair, are you going to jump in there? Bishop Mark, Kevin, how can we identify that this is really gaslighting?
I
Sinclair, go
think
ahead.
I think I think the way that it happens to identify is if you, the receiver, would have expressed how it is affecting you, and yet it is still continuing. Because I believe if you're in a relationship and I say to my wife, "But honey, I so and so and so and so," that there should be some attempt. There should be some attempt for her to, or for me, if she's the one receiving, to adjust what I'm doing to help my wife or my spouse to get through the situation. So I think, as you say, once you can identify this continuous thing, or you might get an apology, but then you find this thing raising its head again. I think, especially if there's communication from the receiver that this is affecting me, and you can see tangible changes or no changes, then you can identify it as that, because you would have made the attempt to express how you were feeling, and you haven't seen the response from the person. Try even in a small way to stop it, right? So I guess you can, if you keep the communication channels open, and if the person is willing to hear what you are saying, because a lot of times people hear things and say, "You getting all silly, man, big woman like you getting all like that, man, go cool your foot. I just make a little sport," and so on, and don't take it serious. So we have a number of scenarios and problems that could arise that could cause this thing to break down.
So
And
it's
Bishop
the
Mark,
twisting of the facts, the twisting of the
Right,
facts. That you're saying this, but they're saying no, this is not really
right,
what it is. It's the twisting of the
yeah,
facts. Kevin, go ahead.
I was gonna say that Bishop Mark just said is a part of gaslighting too, where he just alluded to, per se. There's this little joke, man. Make you
true,
can't take, you're too sensitive. You
correct,
know, I
yeah,
think it's when if you find yourself in a position where the perpetrator is denying your reality, I feel that's when you really know that you're being gaslit, because that person will never allow you to own your reality. They take
yes,
that away from you. So
mhm,
if you're saying this is how what you're doing makes me feel, instead of them acknowledging that what you're doing make you feel that way, they will say, no, you're too sensitive, that's why you
sensitive,
feel that way. It is you who have emotional problems. Something is wrong with you. Every time I say something to you, you just take it so
so
serious. You don't say
serious,
I'm joking. I'm joking, but it's never an acknowledgement of how you truly feel, right? So they don't acknowledge your pain, they don't acknowledge your fears, they don't acknowledge anything about you. It's always about them
okay,
empowering themselves to take away your power. To say, no, man, it's in your head. So if you find that every time you try to, you're having a conversation with your partner, and you're trying to express yourself, and they keep taking that away from you and saying, no, it wasn't like that,
mhm,
it's not that way, it's you're being too sensitive. No, it didn't happen that way. And it's almost like every time you find yourself checking your reality, like, no, it did happen. If you find yourself in that position at all times, then you are experiencing gaslighting.
yeah,
Let me see from might want to look at Bishop Mark touched on something earlier. From a counselor, I'd be looking not only from what the person who portrayed himself to be the victim,
right,
because some of the person that portrays them to be victim actually is a gaslighter, right? And that is a serious thing. That's why some people can come in and say, "Well, I'm a victim of this. This person is doing these things." But if you don't have the ability to hear different levels, and let's say it is a woman, she's crying. So it's easy. Guy is bigger than her. He's, easy, 6'4". She's a small lady. It's easy to see her crying, her being the victim, and therefore a lot of what she's saying is true. So you have now to be able to listen to certain languaging, as you said, the idea of isolation in a relationship. Oh, he's always want to be friends. He don't want to be with me, and this and that. You're listening. Okay, how regular is he with the guys? Right, and the guy is saying, "Well, he don't go anywhere. I hardly go anywhere.
One make up
Oh,
7.
he put his family before me. How regular is that happening?" So realistically, the crying person could be the person who's a gaslighter. Yeah. But it is be difficult if you don't know the ear, because it's easy if she comes and she was to list and it looks like she's the person that's saying these things, and you're not able to look at the fact that she's actually, or he, let me say both parties, but just saying, as Bishmar said, there's some people that would hear this information and everybody's a gaslighter.
Yeah.
But as I said, it is a continuation. It isn't a one-off. Some people don't have the ability to identify emotions or connect with emotions or
Right.
certain things like that. It doesn't mean that they're gaslighting. They might just have an inability or disability of emotions and feelings and certain things. But when you look at the background of a person and you see the desire for power and control, and you're looking for that, they even want to control the room. They even want to control the counseling session. Because as soon as they recognize they don't have the ability to manipulate the counselor, all of a sudden they shut down. They want to walk away. Oh, I don't like this counseling session anymore. You're supposed to join me to beat him up, or you're supposed to join me to beat her up. So they have to want to have that power and control. You can see the insecurity and low self-esteem is one of the things that are going to show up. Right, here's a list of things you have to see several of these, not one, but several of these things. So one of them, the desire for power and control. Insecurity and low self-esteem is a thing. So you listen to that person to hear where they're emotionally, psychologically, emotionally. The defense mechanism. They don't listen to understand. We touched a bit about understanding last week, but they're listening to defend.
Yeah.
They're not seeking to solve a problem. They're not seeking to let's come to a solution. Their thing is defense.
Yes.
So they're going to put back up a point. It goes in a circular motion. It is never gradient to improve or to learning curve. The learning curve is very straight or circular. Yeah, so you have to be listening, recognize, look, this person not looking for a solution, they're looking defensive, and they go back. What I said, they would listen for things like that. The manipulative tendencies, using different emotional spaces, you know what I mean? So sometimes as soon as we go to make production progress in the conversation, here comes the manipulation. Some guys do that where, I never get angry like that with a person before. The first person I ever get angry with. And no, that is not true. That cannot be true, sorry. She can't be first person. You have this level of anger. You tell me the first person you 50 and the first person you ever cussed out, that is not true. Right? No, I never behaved like this before. She's the only person ever did this. No, those you would hear language like that.
Denial of
Definitely,
denial of behavior that is consistent.
of course. Yeah. There's no you 50 in the first time, you actual lunatic. No, that doesn't make any sense, right? And that is logical, but that's a trained ear you're listening for. Manipulative tendency, same thing. Oh, I never do this, but any man I had before, I never do this. He first person I ever curse up like this. No, please. There's something going on here, and especially if the guy is a docile person, yeah. Unless he's not stimulating something like that, by just saying, let's say he didn't take out the garbage. Oh, I tell him he take out garbage, or I tell him he don't take garbage, and there's a bustle with a cussing. And so this is the first time it's happening. No, please. Just to others quickly. Emotional psychological issues. Sometimes that's what Bishop Mark touched on. Sometimes
Slow down. Repeat that once again.
Sorry about that. Bishop Mark did mention something earlier about psychological issues. So some people legitimately have psychological issues.
That's right.
They have. So this is not a manipulative person. This person legitimately has a something that should be prescribed or something along that line, because it is in their DNA. It is not just in the culture they're raised in. Something chemically is messing with the way how they see life. Yeah, it's like if you see a person have Alzheimer's, they don't remember things, or they see things that didn't happen, right? But we can understand it with a person who's 80, but a person who's 40, we don't understand that. But that is where a person, their reality is being messed with inside of their head. They're not being manipulative. They legitimately have psychological issues and should be looked at. Learned behavior. If we've seen behavior like this, we have a tendency to reproduce this. This is a behavior that I've seen over the years, and therefore I'm repeating this behavior. And that is where council be able to look back at past history and to be able to see those things and cultural and social influences. And this is a major one. Our social media, unfortunately, is going to produce a lot of people who are narcissistic, who is going to be gaslighters, because we are so self-centered. This social media environment has
Should
produced.
you say that? Is that real?
It is
it
because
is.
psychologists have already measured this. Because now women don't have to get validation from their man anymore; they get validation from the world. Right? One time, a lady she got validation from her own man. Now she have validation out there. Here comes the manipulation, and there's a whole dynamics there for guys. A lot of the the red pill community now, they're almost like male feminists. So there's a whole set of psychological internal about me, I'm the victim, castigating, no emotional health, no psychological health, no feelings health, and it's causing a lot of issues. So there's a lot of social and cultural influences that are going to cause this gaslighting.
I really want to touch on the whole issue about social media, because it is interesting how so many counselors who are not trained counselors are counselors on social media. And my challenge is sometimes the false narratives that have been created. Interestingly enough, the whole thing about, and this is another program that we're going to look at, about a high value man versus a low value man. One of the interesting things that I really want to look at, that will come in a subsequent program. But for me, these are some of the things that are being created, and so we're not seeing people for the value that they have. We're seeing people for the value of what they can give a person, and not the quality of character that is being presented. So for me, when we are in a social media setting, and and I'll tell you this, algorithms will follow what you watch. And that's the thing. It is not going to spew and give you alternately what you're interested in. It will give you what you're accustomed. And that's why hashtags are big and so forth. So following these algorithms, you will see that this content comes your way consistently. So that's why you have to be careful what you watch, what you take in, and be able to read between the lines and watch what is coming your way. Because as Sinclair said, gaslighting, there can be so much that's coming around that teaches you what to be and how to be in a relationship, when sometimes it's not healthy, it's not correct, it's not from the foundation of God. So I think we need to understand that when you see social media, understand its role and understand its place, because very often healthy relationships, that's why in generations to come, they're going to have to be challenged to go against sometimes the narrative of what is. If not, we're going to have counselors constantly being flooded in their offices, and a lot of continued broken relationships. Now, as we were talking, for those of you now joining us, good evening. We're talking about gaslighting part 2 in relationships. And interestingly enough, I like the notes we had behind the scene that Pastor Bino, who's not with us this evening, shared. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was isolating the victim. That's one of the extended parts of components of gaslighting, where because of it, it's now becoming abusive, where the person is now separated. And especially when it comes to in-laws, where sometimes now one spouse is separated from the family. This is one of the effects also of gaslighting. Can you speak to that, Bishop Mark, Minister Sinclair, Kevin, this evening? The isolation of victims because of gaslighting. Go ahead, Bishop Mark, because you're muted.
I was saying that Kevin was due for some comments, so I was going to,
I apologize.
defer to him. Right?
I was actually going to come to Kevin after. I know I was coming to Kevin afterward. Go ahead.
Oh, you're coming after? Okay, don't let me think the floor. Yeah, look, you see, as Sinclair said, quite a number of things there. The isolation thing too. There's a way door for the victim to be isolated before having to leave the space, from the standpoint of, again, as I said earlier, how they would respond. Sometimes I call it you take some space from the situation. Remember I said earlier, when the person response. The way people that abuse people get through is that as they abuse, how the people respond empowers them. See what I'm saying? So for me, isolation could also mean taking a time out, fighting hard, counting to, we be saying in the Bayesian vernacular, count to 1,000 or 2,000 to hold back how you would normally react to then do what weaken that person's ability. So yes, the isolation could be in so many different ways where they feel isolated from outside or they feel isolated from the relationship and so on. But I think that the person who is the receiver needs to be able to find ways to adjust to that so that they don't respond the way that the abuser is expecting to empower them.
Go ahead, Minister Kevin. You're muted, actually. Go ahead.
Okay. So I will add to that to say isolation. First, like we know, gaslighting is meant to control that person psychologically. I
Mhm.
feel like you can be isolated and still be in public settings.
Yes.
You know, you go out with that person, you're everywhere with the perpetrator, but you are so isolated because the perpetrator has already isolated you mentally. So now you depend on that person for your reality, because that's the intention of gaslighting. You depend on that person for your reality. So without that person, it's like you can't even trust yourself. You can't. You go to a restaurant and you're afraid to order. You don't know what to order because even something that you look at as simple as that. You might look at it as being simple, but that person could be so mentally isolated that they can't even place their own order because they just feel like if I choose something, I'm going to choose the wrong thing. So it now becomes, hon, what would you want me to eat? What do you think I should have? It's like they can't trust their own judgment. So it's like everything now becomes about that person, and that person takes away your ability to make any form of decision, and you're so isolated. Even though you're out in public settings, even though you're going to family gatherings, even though you're doing all these things, mentally you're isolated.
And I like that you said that because, interestingly enough, as you were sharing, Minister Grant, is that it helps to solidify how abuse then the extended abuse starts to happen, because sometimes persons are not aware that, you know what, this is really happening. This is really happening. I'm being separated. I'm being isolated. Mentally, I'm not, aware. I'm not there. I'm not present. I'm not seeing that these things are happening. But the isolation does not necessarily happen where you're not allowed to go by family, but your input, your contributions are then very limited because your self-esteem and your worth, is affected. You're not seen as being of value. I don't have anything to contribute, so therefore I won't. I'm now dependent on someone else to make those decisions for me. To as we talk about valuing me. Go ahead, Minister Kevin.
But it also that you just said, based on what you just said, it's also that it's not just even the people around you not valuing what you have to say, it's you not valuing yourself. Like you feel like whatever is going to come from your mouth has no value whatsoever. And so even though there's a platform for you to speak, there's an audience for you to speak, you're not going to speak because you can't even trust the words that come out of your own mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the the high extent of manipulation that you could experience, to a point where you are so isolated mentally that nothing makes sense to you. It's like this person now owns you. You're a property. You're and to the point of imprisonment. It's like you're in a mental prison.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Minister Kevin. Sinclair, go ahead.
Yes, please. So many things that we mentioned in a relationship. They send recognizing that they could go both ways. Um, when you actually come to places said where you don't feel you have a voice, yeah, you find you're more silent because let me say, for instance, once again, we're going from the other direction, where as a man you're speaking and she goes, "You're shouting at me," and you're going like, "But he didn't shout." You know what I mean? So now his voice has to drop because he can't even speak the command, right? And you want to, you find he's a lot more timid around her. So, so you talk, I tell you, don't shout at me. I tell you, don't shout at me. You're shouting at me. And he goes like, I'm not shouting. Yes, you are shouting at me. So because there are only two people in the room, how can we measure shouting? Because she gets to dictate what shouting is. If you get what I'm saying to you, she becomes a victim of a shout when it's not a shout because he has a man voice. And
So let me
and
stop
therefore,
right there. Let me stop right
Mhm,
there because
mhm,
let's stop right there. I know Sinclair, Kevin gonna laugh at this because we had this conversation before. If no, we talk about gaslighting. If I say to you that I believe you are shouting at me,
mhm,
even though you said you're a man, you have a big voice, and I'm sure
mhm,
that in conversations, Bishop Mark, in conversations, you are quite aware of what tone, what level,
mhm,
decibels you're speaking at, and it feels to
mhm,
her as if you are shouting at her, and
mhm,
she says to you, you know, why you're shouting at me,
mhm.
you still have to hear that. I believe you still have to hear that because
I
on the
understand
other
that, but
end, if
just showing
she
you where a
is
person uses a
feeling that,
manipulative way. There's a valid thing, yeah. There's a valid
yes,
voice, but then there's a manipulative one too, which means anytime we get in an argument, all they have to say you're showing at me. You know
maybe
what I'm saying to
it's
you?
not from that perspective, but I'm sure I'm saying if she feels that she's being
No,
shouted
I
at,
understand that there's a
okay,
validity of a
right,
guy raising his voice.
right.
I mean, a shout is a shout. What I'm saying from a manipulative place, that I'm saying to you. Therefore, you cannot, it becomes subjective. And that's when the manipulation comes in because who's to say that, you're chewing too loud, right? You also, you can't even chew. I'm saying to you. Because a person's new manipulation between you. And I was saying some people can't even chew and you watch persons lose their whole personality. Or you laughing too loud. Okay, that is a problem, right? Because there is this subjectivity, and therefore you pair it with other things. You're not just as one thing, but you're pairing it with other things that then becomes manipulative. Because it is whenever we get into an argument or again, I have to say it to her or him, just using her for instance, where a person you use the weaker vessel to be the aggressor in this space. Because then we can see the physical man as the aggressor. But I'm saying that, and we speak about those, but I'm just saying we're the person we could could be manipulative person here too, because they just have to say he is shouting, you're shouting, and it's just you and her. Then it means he now has to bring his voice all the way down to the point now he has lost his voice. You saw him 2 years before he was married. No, 3 years in his marriage, he's a shell of who he used to be. This grown big man, you see him now, he's changed, and he's like, what is happening? And it's not where he become more humble, he's broken. Yeah. And therefore you see women like that, they had a personality and now they're in a relationship and now they're broken. It's not, and they've changed, but they've come broken. And that's why the manipulative say there's a difference in behaviors. Yes, if I'm shouting, any person say you're shouting. However, if it is when it is used whenever there is a challenge of a behavior, a correction of behavior, you recognize what is a manipulative behavior. Yeah, so that's a slight difference. I'm not saying don't hear when she's shouting. You don't shout at people. But if I'm talking, you recognize once it is a point of I'm addressing some of that you don't like, that is brought in. That is manipulation. Likewise, if I'm saying something you don't like and the crying is brought in, that is manipulation. Because we are not addressing the issue. Because I was saying, babes, you leave too much shoes at the door. Why you gonna shout at me? No, we talking about the shouting and not the shoes at the door. You know what I'm saying to you? You leave too much.
Diversion from the issue.
So
Is
you
that what you're saying?
exactly my point. The crying, so also we got to address the crying and not the shoes at the door. This is manipulative behavior. I'm just saying to you. Yeah, you can
You,
tell me
you
shoes
know
at the
that we can
door,
sometimes
but
differ there because if she's crying and she has and
it's
she feels to
manipulation. You
cry,
can call it whatever you want to call it. A
yeah.
rose by any other name, still smell like a rose. I'm just saying that it is a difference in there's a there's a difference in a person having a situation and a person knowing manipulative behavior, as I'm saying to you, you see the manipulation across several systems. So therefore, here comes the crying. So we're not addressing the shoes anymore. We gotta address the fact that she's crying. You know what I'm saying to you? So we don't deal with the issues anymore. It is something else. And also my reality is not my reality. So, it is that when we understand manipulation is a continual behavior to control another person, and it makes them not have a personality about the reality. So that is one of the reasons we can see it happen from both parties. And that is when it's very difficult that when men are going through victims of this, it's very hard for them because that way Bishop Mark says, why don't these people talk about it? Because it's very hard to say, I believe I'm being manipulated as a man, especially. You know what I mean? Put down your foot, have a spine, tell her what to do, and that is only going to make things worse for him.
Giving the gentleman the time to because I'm going to contribute. Go ahead, gentlemen who have anything to say. Go ahead, Bishop Mara. Go ahead. On
I,
mute.
I'll just I'll just say
I
that
can make the pot hotter, we can make the pot not only
I'm
warmer.
in agreement with Saint Clair, um, and this is not throwing stones, but one of the difficulty about us as men at times that we find it hard to voice what we truly feel in a relationship, because who listens to men, by the way? Who listens to us? Who cares? Who even cares about what we go through?
Honestly, nobody.
So
That's an
so
honest thing.
so
Yeah,
so at the
but
end of the
I
day,
can't say that
listen,
we're doing a show
if
called Men on Monday.
I
Come on.
can say this,
we
if
being
I was
honest on
to,
a Monday.
and I bring culture into it. So in my culture, if I was to say to my friends on the street, say, I have a woman and all she's trying to do is manipulate me, and she cut say this and she say the first thing was say, no man, you're the man in the house. Put on your foot, and if she not listen, you just grab her and do it, right there, and then they start promoting abuse, because for the culture is that when you're a man, you're the man a yard, you're the man in the yard, and the woman must listen to you. So for you to put yourself in that position and open your mouth to say that, you're timid to want to say something of that nature, because you're seeing us being soft. And who wants tough man? And even a woman, look at this. Even if you were to have a conversation with a woman about this, a
Look
cultural
at
woman,
Mr. Duffy,
you
the
say
one
you're
that's
soft
half
too.
man.
So I say, you don't want a soft man. No man, my man must be able to tell me, say, this, no man, my man can't move, so that's too soft. So a man don't want to hear that another man is soft, and a woman sometimes don't even want to hear a man say him soft. So even the side that we say that we want our men to display at time this, or to just accept the feminine side, that they can be a little bit more feminine in accepting and acknowledging women's emotions and all of these things, and be able to be more emotional and expressive. When we are challenged as men to be that, even women say that's too soft for them. Some culture women say that's too soft. They don't want a man soft, so you're acting like a girl. I was watching a reel one time, and in the reel, the this man came on and was talking to the woman. He's talking to his woman, and he was telling her how his mom is sick, and he feels so broken about it. And he started crying. And she's saying to him, "It's okay, honey, it's okay. I'm here for you." After that, she leaves him in the bathroom. She goes to the bedroom, take her phone up, and call her mom and tell her mom that he is soft. He's bawling like a baby and all of these things. She can't believe that she have a soft man. And so as men, it's difficult to be vulnerable. So even when we're experiencing gaslighting in a relationship, sometimes for us, we just take it. And again, like Sinclair said, over time, the man just lose his voice. He's broken. It's like you break us to the point where we just say, you know what? Just to let peace reign. Because I've done that. Where I said, let peace reign. Just to let peace reign. If she says, if I talk too strongly, I'm shouting. Okay. It's either I'm not going to say anything or I'm going to try to whisper. Then she might turn around and say, why am I whispering to her? It's like, this is just real. You know? And now whisper says I'm soft. So it's almost like a losing battle at times for us as men. And that's a part of our reality.
Yeah, well, Kevin, I agree with you. That sometimes that's how men feel, right? That it is just a losing battle. Because of, but you see the pressure that is being brought on us. Because with the men, we gotta be men. With the women, if we try to take charge and seek to, be men, we are shouting. If we get too soft, so no wonder so many men just work with each other. As you said, Kevin, they just work towards peace. They put in as much as they can to keep the peace. But I think also one of the things that we need to look at is the whole thing of people doing introspection, looking at themselves. I know it's a very hard thing to do, whether people Christians or not. It is a very hard thing to do. And a lot of times, again, it comes back to where we were, or how much of our past hurts and everything we have given up, where we still operate in a subconscious way many times. Or shall I say, respond to whatever simile is coming because of not letting go certain hurts and so on from the past. And I know you all would have mentioned some of this last week. And so, as I think what we have to recognize is that when things get overbearing, though, I think people need to be honest enough to seek help, right? Because the more sometimes you try to be vulnerable or try to be helpful, sometimes you can become a deterrent to the other person getting over. Because if somebody's mindset about you is that you're manipulative or that you're only trying to win, and like Sinclair was saying, the lady would all of a sudden be powerful and then break over this grand spell, and all of a sudden, no, you must come and put your hand around me, and you're supposed to handle me tenderly, right? So you become manipulative. Then no, I call it what was the word I'm looking for? It is deflective, right? You don't want to hear the truth because it pressuring you, so you find something else to hold on to. So it is a complicated thing. I I think that it is also difficult for people to come together and say, look, we need help. We need help. And I think these are things that we can always be facing. And all we can do is to pray and pray that, especially the Christian community, that they will allow God to search them, melt them, and also to seek solutions to their problems. Where everything, God's not going to drop things in your lap, but you need to seek people who would have more experience in these things and try to seek help instead of just running away.
I agree. It's interesting the men share their comments from their perspective this evening in terms of gaslighting and the effects of the manipulation, because there's an aspect of gaslighting that leads to manipulation, because it's about, as we talked about, the power perspective, being in control. So I have an interesting question here, and I want to ask, and that's something that I wanted to ask, based on stuff that Kevin was saying about a man being vulnerable and being soft and so forth, because I'll tell you this, society has said that, and this is where social media has really played a very big part in recent years about what a man is supposed to look like. Now, gaslighting, the basis of gaslighting is communication, whether it's good or it's ineffective. That's the basis of it. It's something that's being communicated. That's the bottom line when we look at gaslighting. Sometimes toxic, and sometimes it can be from the perspective, not gaslighting, but sharing your feelings or your perspective in terms of, communicating what is not working for you in a relationship. The challenge we have now is in that communication, not gaslighting, as Angine said, where is the middle ground? How should we communicate to each other, especially when it comes, I'm not sure if this is what she's saying, but in terms of especially healthy communication, not like Sinclair say, tears as a manipulative tool, because as Sinclair said, and we've had this on other programs, women cry to get their own way. You're not hearing me, you're not, and then the burst out in tears and the situation is never discussed, because it is true. But then there's also the perspective, if I feel overwhelmed by a situation and I start to cry, don't make me feel like, um, it's not, I'm not being heard. Because as I said before, if Sinclair is stepping on my toe, and I say to Sinclair repeatedly, you're stepping on my toe. And in our process of communication, he starts to raise his voice, or he does not raise his voice, or he says to me, like Sinclair, like Kevin says, I should move because you're not stepping on my toe. We've got a problem with gaslighting there. There's ineffective communication. So how do we communicate so that our men are heard and our women are heard? How is it that we need to communicate so that it's effective and we have healthy relationships? So when I say to Sinclair, you are stepping on my toe. Every time we meet this point, you keep stepping on my toe. And Sinclair says, well, I'm now hearing you. I understand you. Not, what are you talking about? I'm stepping on your toe. Because from the time you go there, nothing gets, nothing is ineffective from there. So how do we communicate, as Anjin is asking, the middle ground? How do we do it? Who's going to start? Kevin, you want to start first?
I think
I can jump in there.
Yeah, there you go, Sinclair. I was gonna nominate you.
Yeah. As I posted some stuff, I said I just want to be clear: the difference between gaslighting and difficulty in communication. They're two distinct things. The objective of gaslighting is to manipulate. Yes, I may be an ineffective communicator. I may not be the most empathetic person. I may not be the most sympathetic person. I may have raised in a household where my father shouted or something like that. Those are not a person that is gaslighting. That's a person that needs therapy. That's a difference altogether. Now, we asked the question about where's the middle ground in communication. I like the word. I like to use the word before that, effective communication, so we could distinguish between communication and effective communication. Because I tell people all the time, one of the things we hear, especially when people get married, don't let nobody in, put God in the middle and communicate. And I tell people all the time, I'm guaranteed a job. So thank you. Right? Because the truth of the matter is that when people hear that, they hear talk. But many times you cannot discuss what you don't know. Yeah. If you don't know how to effectively communicate, we could talk and we could be talking in two different spaces altogether, because how I encode information and how I decode information can be totally different. Yeah, there's certain keywords, there's certain languages. So I tell people I speak two languages. I speak both man and I speak woman. So I'm able to help men to hear what the woman said, and I'm able to hear the other gender hear what the other person said. Effective communication is just we doing business, we do in corporation, we send a pro forma invoice, we check that invoice, we come back, we send back, we make adjustments, we both agree on that email, and then we ship the product. When it comes to relationships, we don't do that. People are talking, which is different than saying, what did you hear me say? There's a total different thing to, this is what I heard. What did you hear me say? And when that person repeat that, then you can make adjustments. Some people, because they're unhealthy, when you say already, you can't change your mind. It doesn't come out your mouth. Now, that is not giving the person to make adjustments. Yeah. So we talk about effective communication compared to communication. Many times when people are shouting and screaming, it's because they didn't have a culture which showed them how to communicate at a 1, 2, 3, 4, especially if they're angry. Once again, that needs to be taught. So the things for effective communication, some things we need to be taught, some we need therapy, and we also need to learn how to tell a person, this is what I heard you say. Is this correct? It is mature people sitting with conflict and not get distracted from the conversation and attacking the other person. What will make you say that? You're an idiot. We just left the conversation and attacked the person. that is not effective communication. Yeah, so those are kind of four things that I kind of would say would help with effective communication. Hope that helps you, Angie.
For you, Minister Kevin, because you did share quite a bit. What are your perspectives in terms of being effective in the communication? What for you would you like to see that would help women better communicate with their men?
Oh.
Do we have all
Well,
night?
yeah, we, we don't have night for that. But I'll say this: when it comes down to gaslighting, I think from the onset we have to set boundaries. Even in the dating process, before we get even into marriage, we have to set boundaries. Those are very important. Boundaries for yourself and boundaries for the other person. Because when you set boundaries for you, and boundaries for yourself is very important, because you're saying to yourself, I will not take this kind of behavior. This is not going to work for me. I am going to protect, I'm going to safeguard myself from anything that looks toxic. So the moment you tell yourself this, then you start to almost like you create a filter. As you communicate with people, you start to hear what they're saying, and it's almost like you're filtering out the toxic, and you're saying, okay, this is toxic, that's toxic. I don't want to relate, I don't want to have conversation this way. So from the onset, you're stating your boundaries, and you have to be firm on that. You have to be firm on it, because the moment that you slip and say you're starting to let certain things slide, then you're opening the door for that manipulation to come in and to perpetuate, and then the gaslighting start and all of these things. So you have to set your boundaries and stick to it. And like I heard one person use this analogy about, putting a firewall like a computer. You have your hard drive, and you're putting a firewall to protect what your information. So you're protecting the computer from the virus and malware and all of these different things. It's the same way you have to protect your mind, because the reality is that this person, and a gaslighter intention is to control your mind. So your mind is the hard drive in at the moment. Because let us think about this. When you start to when you downloading something on your computer, and you see anything pop up that suggests that this could be a virus, what do you seek to do immediately? Delete it, right? It's the same thing. It's a similar approach, that the moment you start seeing this kind of toxic behavior, you say, no, I have to delete this person. You don't wait until you get into marriage, then you're trying to delete. Hit delete, cancel, cancel. You don't want the honor anymore. You cannot wait until so far. You got to pay attention. But the good thing about it is that we are having these conversations, because a lot of people, like you said, are not aware of gaslighting. And a lot of people are not aware that it's happening to them. And now people are enlightened as to why I feel the way I do. Why do I feel so insignificant? Why do I feel like I've lost myself? So this is a good place to be. And yes, that's my share as we are going to close.
I would just like to add to what you said, Kevin. What I want to say to it: the person who feels like the one who is being abused, or the receiver, I really think should make every effort. One, I think what they should do so is to ascertain whether or not it is gaslighting. Keep notes, WhatsApp messages, record what is happening, so that you can pick up. You can say, well, look, this was it. Look, this was that. This was it. So you get bits and pieces of it, like a little detective, to make sure that it is not only you. But then, if these feelings are coming over you, where you're starting to feel that you're not worth it or affecting your self-esteem, don't wait for the other person. Don't try to get the two of you all together. I think that person should seek out for themselves separately first. Because what that does now is help them to see, where can I be contributing to the problem? Are there issues with my self-esteem? Are there things in my life that are causing me to react? Am I overreacting, for example? So I feel that once you start to get those feelings, don't wait on the other person. You go and check that out. Because if you get clear as to where you are, then, like Kevin says, you can delete before any problem, right? Delete, get that person. A lot of times people love people so much that they seek to maneuver to fit what they want, what the person wants, and so date a lot of themselves. So sometimes it's better to take what is, do all this checking out so that you can make an informed decision for your life. And as Kevin said, long before you get into marriage. And if you're already married, work on you first, because maybe there might be something about you that could very well be stimulating the person to move in the direction that they're moving in.
Wow. Well, here's where we're going to end today's edition. I cannot believe it. It's already been an hour that we've been together sharing on gaslighting. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot today too. And I hope that you both did. I want to say thanks to Sinclair for sharing in the comments on our YouTube page, Unifying Families Worldwide. So for those of you who are watching, feel free to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so that every time we go live, you will get notifications, and click the notification bell too, so that you are aware. Sinclair did share quite a bit of information in the chat on the YouTube page, and it's a lot of stuff in terms of the behavior, and the power to control, because you might be the victim of it, but you might also be the one who's also perpetrating it. So we are better able to improve ourselves. I believe that that's what God wants for us. And it's not about bashing one sex versus another, but it's rather for us to grow and to improve. I have improved so much in terms of listening to these programs. And I'm sure the men have also learned from each other as we've shared. And as we've shared, we want you to do the same. So it's been a great program this evening. Gaslighting, part 2, that has been our show. And next week we'll be back with another great show. And one of the interesting things I was looking at, and has been pointed out to me, the high value man. What is a high value man? Is there such a thing as a high value man? My goodness, I want to say I am so glad that God created me a woman. That has been today's edition of Men on Monday. Apologies for Pastor Bino, who is away on duty this evening. Thanks to all of you who've been with us tonight watching. I've been Marissa Boyce. I am Marissa Boyce. Thank you to St. Clair, Bishop Mark, and Kevin this evening for sharing with us. Oh my goodness, forgive me. I was just laughing at the fact that these men, I'm so glad that God has created me a woman. This day and age, to be a man, it's a tough task. But, I'm glad that we are all improving and growing together. That has been today's edition of Men on Monday. To all of you who've been viewing Facebook, LinkedIn, and also on YouTube, thank you so much. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our show so that you don't miss our future shows. Thanks for joining us today on Men on Monday. Transformation happens here on Unifying Family. Men on Monday, Women on Wednesday. Real talk, real issues, real solutions.